The Father and I are one. Our gospel today ends with this statement. We're being told here that Jesus and God are the same person. So it stands to follow that they care for their sheep in the same way. And they're caring for their sheep, all of us here, is as any mother and father would care for their child. God, Jesus, cares as mother, father. This is understood because in the statement, the Father and I are one, for the word that John uses, the Greek word for one, is gender neutral. John wants to make sure his point is taken, that God's relationship for all is the same way both a mother and a father's relationships with their children is the same as in the relationship between God and his followers. And that is beyond human boundaries. This way, God makes the same promise to a man as a woman, and as they each are able to understand in their own particular ways. This promise of commitment is topmost priority in today's gospel. One man, and his story about promises is Alex Sheen. He always thought that integrity was an important part of what makes up our character and defines who we are as people. And keeping our word to people, personally following up on what we said we would do, is integrity of a top priority. Alex started a movement called Because I Said I Would. He did it to honor his father, who used this trait of integrity as an inner compass to guide him, and helping others, honoring commitments, keeping promises to ourselves and to others. It gives hope, strength, and most of all, it makes people held accountable to their actions and their statements. Our gospel today has a few statements about promises. Jesus said, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. No one can take them out of my hand." Here, Jesus is promising us that should we follow him, he will let nothing come between he and us. Nothing will destroy the relationship we have with Jesus, and nothing will negate the love he has for us. He goes on to say that no one can take us out of his Father's hand. Another promise that when we commit to God, he commits to us. And his commitment is permanent. There's nothing stronger than that promise of his to us, that all we need to do is follow him, and this commitment is made. We hear about God's commitment to each of us on this Good Shepherd Sunday. Each year, maybe it's a little different because we hear different selections from John chapter 10. But the meaning is the same. It promises the same. God will not leave us. Making a promise to ourselves is just as important. It too can make us better people. One person who became aware is Matthew Cordell. On June 22nd, 2013, he was driving drunk, as he often did in the past. He said this was something he did, and he always made excuses why he did it. He felt he owed no sense of safety to anyone, much less himself. On that night of June 22nd, he drove the wrong way down a highway. His vehicle collided head-on with another vehicle, and that other driver was killed. The next thing Matthew knew, he recounted how he went to a high-powered attorney who told him he could get out of it. All he had to do was lie. He could get the blood test thrown out. He could again make excuses for what he did. But something happened. He found the Because I Said I Would movement. He read about how it came about, the stories of other people who made promises and kept them, and how it made people accountable. He read how integrity was a centering force. He realized that his integrity might be all he had left. And this thought made him realize he had to do something about that. He recognized in order to have integrity, he needed to take full responsibility for his accident. Matthew made himself a promise that he would do just that, to plead guilty and to be willing to take the sentence the judge handed down. He didn't want to make any more excuses. He made his promise and he kept it. Sometimes we lose sight of our promises. So Alex Sheen came up with note cards to remind himself of the promises he made. The card is mostly blank except for the line at the bottom that says, "Because I said I would." In the blank space, he would write the promise he had made. Whether the promise was to himself or someone else, it didn't matter. Once the card was filled out, he would put it in a place where he would see the promise so he could follow through. The hope was that one would keep these promise cards of one's promises, and that would lead to a life change for those involved. Because I Said I Would is a movement that shares many stories on his website of how people's lives were changed by this simple little card. And I will have these for you on the table in the back after Mass if anyone would like to make a promise to keep. I don't think God needs a card to be reminded of the promise made to each one of us. This is a promise equal to all, whether male or female, from a God who understands intimately who each woman and each man and what is needed. And with this day, tomorrow being Mother's Day, let's not limit ourselves to mom or dad, but like God, all become of one mind, and each of us make a promise to either ourselves or someone else. So these cards will be in the back of church. At the bottom it says, "Because I said I would," and you write your promise up top. I encourage people to take one and think about a promise, a realistic promise, that they can write down and keep. Let's all walk in the ways of God. God has made a promise to us that will not be broken. In that spirit, let us each make a promise to show how we follow our shepherd in all his ways.